guys, so today we will be watching a recce race for the ZRL Round 3 on New York course, apart from it's a loop. 4 laps, pretty much 40k. Major features being the New York sprint, fastest through segment and first cross line there, so that's going to play a decent part in how the race plays out. And yeah, bar that, it's just a really rolling course, and obviously the finish is a tricky one. But yeah, stacked race full of backpedalers with Hula Cole, a certain individual pursuit world championship champion who's gone sub 4 minutes for the individual pursuit, with an incredible moustache, Ashton Lambie in here as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Really get a sense of how potentially the race will play out in how potentially the race might play out in next Tuesday, at least in the high A divisions, although I'm expecting it to be a little bit more sedate through sprints potentially. Things to watch out for: a certain Piglet of backpedal going on attacks. Strong riders like we can see on screen who's just joined in the pink kit there, Chris Small. Indeed, Al, that moustache is 100% where the power comes from. I mean, you can't argue with it. It is just the case. But yes, there's some very strong riders. I can see Che Halbeiler with Vision. He is incredible at the drafting and getting in the front group, no matter what. Yeah. As I say, large contingent of backpedalers, lots of really strong riders. And no idea what has just put me off the rider I was viewing. Give me 1 second. Yeah, hey Al, how's it going, mate? Back with Piglet for viewing now. But yeah, so stacked field. 6K riders. Mixed cat start, so that's going to play a role in how this one plays out. Obviously not quite the same as with Race League, but ultimately you'd argue it's close enough. Like, the mixed cat start will just make it more hectic with other categories pushing hard early on, potentially making it tougher at the start, more like as with Race League race. So yeah, I'll have a quick little back. You can see there Simon Myatt of backpedal there, backpedal A1, super strong rider as Deed. Yeah. Oh, and there you are, Lennart Teugels with BZR. So we've even got the Platinum League, Premier League riders who race on a Monday jumping in here to experience it. So with a stacked field as this, it's absolutely going to be an exciting race to see how it plays out. But yeah. One thing that will be quite interesting is, with this many class riders as such, how's it gonna differ to this Race League race? Will they want to really try and break away early and whittle the field down, or are they just gonna cruise around and see how it plays out? Hey Ruben. It's certainly going to be interesting. Yeah, close to start now. You can start at 10,000 watts per most of the races. See how quickly it settles down. I'm wagering it won't. But yeah, as we go through the race, I'm going to bring up any kind of points of note that I feel will play kind of a key part in how the race plays out, particularly focusing on the sprints and stuff like that. Yeah, it might be a little bit hard on Tuesday indeed. And we're off. Oh, only the A pen is visible. Ah, that's interesting. All cats start at the same time, but you can only see your own pen. That's good to know. Yeah, as you can tell, like, this is a class field, a big field, loads of backpedalers in, which is great to see. Great to see backpedal getting out there representing. Yeah. So straight into a gradual 1% up. You can see how high the speed is, but 1-2% up to 4% within the first 400 meters. That means that a hard pace is going to push people out the back, and that's definitely going to be part of the way it plays out. I indeed doubt it's going to be interesting to see, but I imagine with such a class field, hopefully it should mix it up a bit and give us a bit of that. We'll just have to see. You can see how rolling New York is already, like, yeah. Yeah, big pack still together, lots of riders. Got a kind of long, flat, I say flat, rolling section around the park really this route. There's no, don't go up the KOM as far as I'm aware. If we do, I apologise for misleading you there. But it kind of, it really is, as far as New York goes, it is all about just punching, rolling. And I'm guessing splitting up on the sprints. There's not necessarily key points for it to break up much. A few descents, a few little climbs, but none of them last significantly long. In terms of power-ups, we'll see on Tuesday. As far as I'm aware, it is Aero, Anvil, and give me one sec, I will confirm. Aero, Anvil, and Feather. So Aero and Feather, useful. Anvil, arguably significantly less useful on this course. There's no points of particular length downhill enough to cause any splits. But yeah. Oh, hello. All cats can see each other, and the Bs have just caught the As. Here we go. Bit more Swift like Swift Race League now, with an absolute train of riders flying through to make the speed come up. See if the computer can keep up with it. But yeah, here you can really see kind of how the race is going to play out. It's kind of, there's not much to do early than ride hard and stay in the draft. If you want to try and make it hard and it will hurt people. Otherwise you're just sitting in the draft waiting for the sprints really. This is probably one of the most major descents on route. You can see how quickly we're going down it. And say you've got a power up and you pop it at the top of this descent. There's a chance it has an impact. But you've got to be aware that if that anvil lasts a little bit too long and you end up on the flat, you could be in danger. Yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll watch the sprints of this race, but my gut feeling is if you deploy that anvil at a sprint, you've got to remember you go uphill into it first, really. So if you deploy it, you'd have to deploy it as it starts going downhill, by which point you've already really started launching the sprint. So it'll be interesting to see that one. Of course, in the D race, for example, the downhills are going to take longer because pack speed will be slower. There's a chance that anvils might be more useful at that point. But just going to have to see. Little kickers like this, you can see how Paul here has absolutely flown up the group into to the front from pretty much the back. And attacks like that can go really quickly if the rest of the pack isn't pushing on. Obviously, he's not attacking, he's just getting in position. But if you were to want to attack, it's very feasible to go flying through. Now you can see them putting the hurt on. I mean, this isn't an easy effort. So yeah, there's just enough of kicks like this in with the rollers that it does make it tricky. And if you've got a feather, it's places like this you really want to use it to make most of that kind of lower weight advantage. Because what you don't want to do is use the feather on a short kicker and all of a sudden have the disadvantage going downhill. And obviously if you get an aero, ideally you save it for the sprint. And ideally with a feather, you save it for the kick up before the sprint. Because if this is the sprint, I believe it is, which I believe it is, then there's a lot to be gained from carrying speed up through the draft of the group onto the climb over into the descent. It'll be interesting to see. Here we go. The piglet is already flying. Trying to push on and break it up a bit, but the pack's not particularly keen. Everyone just wants to cruise around, it seems. But you can see how a potentially attack like that with a team could really kind of mix it up. With Paul on his own, you can't do much. But if you say you've got 3 or 4 guys all doing 7 watts per kilo off a front on one of those climbs that they've coordinated, all of a sudden they could tear a pack to shreds, because you can't let a whole team like that get a gap, so you have to follow. But at the same time, you're not expecting it, and you're not potentially ready to respond to that. If it could shell some people out the back not ready for that big effort. And obviously with this course, once you're out the back, getting back in is not an easy proposition at all. Particularly if it's a fast travelling group, because pack speed on the descents is so high, and even draft up the climbs is still pretty significant, especially the harder they're attacked and then the higher categories as well. One thing to take note of, despite it getting steep enough to super tuck at many points, so over that kind of 4 or 5% threshold, not very many of the descents are long enough that you actually get that chance to get into the tuck, and you have to be really on it thinking, chasing that bit of recovery when you're eyeballs deep in lactic. You've got to think about it actually, although it's going to be steep enough, I'm just hitting super tuck speed at the bottom. You can't take that, you have to make sure you're ready to go up the next climb. If you lose your momentum into the next one, that can see you out the back. But yeah, going to be interesting. So it's about, maths is not my strong point, about 9.8, 9.9k a lap, as far as I'm aware. So here you are, so you can see super tucking, one of the longer ones, can work out. Just have to be on it when it flattens off again. And as that speed changes. So with this course in particular as well, there's not one specific place that you can be certain an attack's going to go. If it goes uphill on a course like this, it's enough that someone could launch and break the group up. So it's really one you have to be aware of the whole time. Like on these long descents here, all it takes is someone on the group to be pushing on, to the front of the group to push on and stretch it out a bit, and all of a sudden those not paying attention at the back are in trouble. We don't think we'll see that in this race, but yet again, a team wanting to really put the cat amongst the pigeons and take it out in a way no one expects could feasibly do that. But yeah, so into the sprint here, up this climb, it's enough that it really reduces speed. And the argument is that if you go from the back from about this point on the climb and start putting the hammer down, you can move through the group with speed, accelerating over the top of the climb, then through the group's draft as you come over the crest into the final downhill bit to the sprint. Now, in this race, we're not necessarily seeing it because not very many people are sprinting, but you can envisage how carrying speed, building up the speed and accelerating through the group on that climb to go with the draft and have that extra speed through the draft towards the finish could really play out. It'd take time indefinitely to go for first cross line points, but for going fastest through, there's a really good chance that actually being nearer the back and then accelerating and making the most of that draft could really, really play out. It's almost like the balance of watts needs to be more on the uphill rather than the last bit to the finish, which almost converts to what you think you want to kick hardest as you in those last few hundred meters, but actually it's getting the speed up towards that point that's almost more important, at least for me. But yeah, I'm hoping we see some see some fireworks going off at some point after they've had one sighting lap, because there's not too much to call about it. I mean, there's so much you could say, like we're going uphill again, there's another potential point, something to go after the sprint, fatigue legs, something like this means people could go, but otherwise, things won't. Yeah, Mick, it's Swift being silly, innit? We are actually watching P. Hamlet, as you can probably tell from the screen. But yeah, I'm sat in the pens. As you can see, I'm not exactly riding. But yeah, hoping for some attacks because there's so many places things could go, but that just sums up this New York race. The main points being the sprint. 39.8k 4 laps, or 39 point something k 4 laps, so full distance of the ACAT ZRL. And it's such a stacked field as well. I mean, you've got Toygles. In theory, there is Ashton Lambie in here. I've not seen him. But a lot of Wahoo the Coal boys. Go away, Siri. A lot of Wahoo the Coal boys. Lots of backpedalers, as we well know. Yeah. Chris Small from Evo. Strong rider. So yeah, coming into finish here, you've got that long downhill into it. So you've got so much speed coming through. I'd imagine it's probably worth going long. 38k, cheers Al. But then you've got this kicker. Now, this uphill, Paul's attacking perfectly on it through the banner. But you could really, really, really strongly argue that you've not only got... What is this doing? Apologies about this. Keeps changing riders for no reason. That finish is going to be interesting because although there's very much potential to attack early, it's potentially not worth it on that finish because of that uphill. You need to carry all that group speed down into the descent in a perfect position, but you need to be ready to kick really hard up that last bit of climb. You can see how stretched out this group is. It's not letting me find Paul, which isn't good. Not letting me fan view him. We've got Kyle here, and you can see Piglet up the road. See if I can get him on a normal Zwift rather than Companion Acts. Companion Acts being silly. Here we've got the front of the race again. Apologies for the delay in getting there. Almost a team attack there with a few off the front, but they're being brought back slowly. Well, not slowly, relatively quickly really. Yeah, Kyle, international style icon. But you can see how easy a group gets stretched out on a course like this. Like those attacks that have gone, it is absolutely lined out over a long distance. Yes, we've got Piglet, Paul, EK, Kyle, Simon Meyer. As far as I'm aware, Scott Brotherhood is also in here. There's a few more of the A2 guys who I've not spotted on the leaderboard, but I know they were racing in theory. You can see the Wahoo the Coal guys, you've seen Toygles, you've seen Who else? Jay from Visions here, who I used to race with. Yeah, Chris Small from Evo. Yeah, large backpedal numbers. I think there were 5 backpedalers as far as I was aware in the pen. Maybe more even. We can see how much the pace has increased this lap over the previous. Be interesting to see if this does break up later in the race with more attacks, or if they let it be as such. Be interesting. You can see there how dangerous it is to play the top game, because if it goes slightly wrong, and you'll climb like this, you're putting in a big effort to bring them back. About 60 A's myth, I believe. Yeah, so there's a large numbers in it. I guess what I see Piglet going on another attack. I guess I'll provide a little bit of overview on how, if I was to end up racing, how I'd approach it. In that I'd expect there to be attacks on this climb, but I wouldn't expect any attacks to stick off the front of the group necessarily. I'd expect them to get brought back. So for me, I'd be sitting in near the relative front of the group, hoping that those attacks were brought back with me in the wheels being slightly fresher. And I'd really be targeting Nerling's sprint for aiming more for fastest free segment, but trying to pick up some foul points closer to the time. Because ultimately, I think if you nail fastest free segment, it's higher risk, but it's higher reward. And if you time it right, it's almost easier to get those fastest free segment points than it is the fastest across the line points. And with multiple goes at it, it's worth a shot. And there's also the chance to pick up fastest first across the line using that method. But yeah, and then Jack Kellum with backpedal as well, there you are. But in terms of going for the finish, I think it's still going to be a reduced pack into the course, but it'll still be a very decent size. So I just don't see, at least in my league, A5, EMEA Southwest A1, I don't see any particular teams with the impetus to really push on. And I think we'll go through the sprints and it'll ease, even on a course like this. There'll be people trying to make it hard, then they'll get tired and not have quite so much to sprint. The big sprinters will go, and all of a sudden people sit in again. So it'll be more of a race of, if you're feeling good, catching people out to drop a couple off the back, but mainly focusing on going for the sprint, and then on that last lap, if you've got a team of non-sprinters, potentially going long as a unit and trying to TTT it. If worst things worst is you tire out the legs of the sprinters, and where it becomes more watts per kilo on that final kick to the line, you've got more of a chance. So that'd be my thoughts, but very much depends how your team plays it out. I imagine that Wahoo Cole, we're going to have some fancy tactics in the same league as BAKPDL A1. Riders like Ruben, who was in the chat earlier, he'll have a super strong ride on this course, punchy course like this if he's riding. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it plays out, but actually average powers aren't particularly high. There's a lot of sitting in and still travelling high speed because of the rolling nature. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, you can see the pace has slowed right down again. Sometimes I do wonder, to be fair, if you're doing a recon race like this, surely you want to absolutely smash it. because although you don't get to see the course as much, you get a real sense of what the course is like at speed. And ultimately, for me, I'd imagine that's worth a hell of a lot more than a little wimble around the route you could have just done on your own. But that's just my opinion. Interesting to see Piglet dropping off the back there, putting a bit of a kick in up the climb, be able to super tuck through this descent you wouldn't normally be able to. I did initially think that, Mick, but I think it's just to get a chance to super tuck. I'm not entirely sure. Or was it mistimed? Love it, Paul. Paul, just keep making it interesting for us, mate. It's all we ask for. Yeah, here we go into sprint again. See how tricky it is with this rise. And the thing about it is, it's not up all the way, then straight down. You've got this little bit of plateau and gradual descent decrease from kind of that peak of, what was it, 5-6%. You've got a drag at 1%, 2% for a few more meters before it then really kicks down into this. And it's literally at the point it starts going downhill that you get that banner. See Paul here, he's putting a big surge at the start. He's carried him through to a quick time, but arguably at what point do you need to start building speed on that hill to have the maximum speed through the group on that descent? It's a tricky one, so you've got to race how the field races, but at the same time you want to send that quickest time through. Now quickest time is accelerating through that draft down, where you've got the draft on a downhill, that's going to send you flying through. But because you're at the front, you get swamped from behind like you do on a normal downhill. But yeah, I'd imagine so. I imagine people would be going really hard up it. It's almost like at the point it starts getting less steep, you saw it waver down to 1, then went back up to 2, then went to 1 again. It's almost to the point it hits that 2 after dropping down to 1 that I think you need to start winding it up from what kind of mid-back of the pack maybe. But then it depends, if people go really early up that climb, they could potentially put people trying to position for faster through segment out the back, which could be quite a class tactic if you're wanting to get rid of sprinters with a big kick who are going for that time. So it's an interesting one, because it is one where you can really kind of make people hurt as such. But yeah, potentially, yeah. It just, as you say, it really depends how people play it out. If it goes that early, this route can go 2 ways. It can be brutal the whole way, with basically the only recovery being the long downhill, and the rest of the time people are just smashing it. Or it could be one of the ones where they cruise around, someone put a few digs in, some people sit in, some put a few digs in, some sit in, with the sprints in between. But particularly in your league, Paul, I imagine it's going to be brutal the whole way. Hey, Jason. But yeah, this finish is it's pretty close to that sprint as well, which is certainly different. And it peaks in gradient quite near the finish. Yet again, it's just a tricky one like that. You've got to have enough to kick over that last steep bit. As speed goes down, your power needs to go up. But yeah. Yeah, the arm's not too bad, mate. It's healing. It's here, but out the cast and working on the ability now to help it heal. Going physio next Wednesday. But yeah, just gotta keep the healing going. So yeah, 2 laps down, and a few points it kind of sparked a little bit, but not really properly at any point yet. Which, yeah, it's not a proper recon of the ZRL really. You want to kind of get a sense of how the race is going to play out on this course, and you just don't get that from a race like this. I imagine Mick's doing a double race this evening that he'll be streaming over on his channel, Mick Burkoff, or apologies for butchering the name there, Mick. But he'll be doing a stream over there, and I imagine them being single lap races, they'll be much more representative of the level of difficulty. Because even with guys like Piglet here putting the digs in, ultimately there's points of hards and they all settle really easy again for a while. That might not happen. It's good to see Piglet off the front here. Got a bit of a gap there. A little bit of camera 6 camera work for you. But ultimately, they know a solo rider come to the steeper descents, he's going to be hung out to dry. On the gradual bits, you can ride away at 2.5 watts per kilo more, but on the steeper bits, that's not going to happen. Because pack speed is so high, and all it takes is a couple of people to sprint through for a little bit of time. They'll be closing it. But getting out a 5-second gap here, that's good going. And he's done it sustainably in terms of he's gone at the right time when pack speed is lowest to start the gap, but late enough on a climb that not many people have had a chance to fully jump across. So it's been smart riding there. No worries, mate. It's good to watch professionals like you race, eh? You see how significant this gap is, like, you've not even got the distance markers up on the names at the bottom of the screen there, and that is significant ultimately, that if you're not seeing them, you know that you've got a reasonable gap, and that gap is still 4 or 5 seconds. This is a key part to see actually how a solo rider can play it out against a big pack if the big pack isn't motivated to put lots of effort in. You see that gap maintaining still. Still got that 4 seconds, it depends how much speed is carried out of the descent though. It's going well. Yeah, you can see how quickly that gap came down. Though arguably a kick up here, you could dangle as a bridge for people coming out of the pack to form a group. But it'd be interesting. But particularly with this being such a kick point up each climb from the group, you have to have a decent group off the front. Could arguably be a race out the back, like Classique, but in a different way in terms of Classique is a race out the back through each sprint basically. Whereas this arguably is a race out the back based around these kickers and just dropping riders all the way through the lap. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. But this super steep slope, I'd be shocked if in most ZRL races there aren't a team that tries something here, simply because it is by far the slowest part of the course, and we all know that the slower you're going, the easier it is to establish a bigger gap. It'll be interesting to see if the pressure in ZRL is pushed on over the top of that into this descent. Speeds could be super high. I don't think people will be getting back from the back of the line back in if speeds are as high as they potentially can be. But it'll be interesting to see.
Make you out for what you say to me. Look at every single date. If you got what I need, then oh, I'll take you on like a big deal. Eggs you can unseal. Key in ignition. Just keep me full like I had a meal. Once in a while, feel all that I know you like it. Can't find.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, in the front group we've got Kyle, Chafin Vision, Simon, Piglet in the front group that I follow. That doesn't mean that Scott Brotherhood and Jack Kellum aren't there, I've just not seen them. Okay, that's interesting. Do you think that the pack, although it will get strung out, that actually that descent, even if they push on at the front, the speed from the back of the pack and potentially the people struggling up that climb, being the heavier riders, will have more of a chance to get accelerated through on the descent?
The year is 1991. Birds and people are living together in seemingly perfect harmony. Until one day, a young man catches fire. This is Phoenix. You've been knocked down and got up again. In a corner, you're surrounded, no defenders.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that's really interesting then. So, potentially, it's true. Once they go flat out, it really does change the race. But it's interesting to think there's still potential for people to get back in. Be interesting. Well, for any of my, I don't know if my A5 team are watching, but I'm afraid we're going to be trying to make it hard, I think. Make it fun, make it exciting. yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how that plays out at different speeds, really. Definitely. Anyway, I'd say the race is looking settled enough at the moment that we can bring out a new feature I'll be trialling on my streams whilst I'm not riding. And that is whilst they put all the effort in and ride in circles virtually, I'm going to eat some cookies. I feel like seems a fair thing to do. The commentator the cookie. See if we can get them playing ball, giving us some attacks. Here we go. A little bit of movement here now. Stretch right out. I'll tell you what, it's a long race to keep trying to talk about. Need to work on my Dave Tao, in a Dave Tao, try and think of more to say. It has been broken up a bit, but ultimately it's just such a big pack, like... It's not really, not really narrowed down. If only I could, Paul. If only I could. Oh no, indeed. It's such a big pack. Like, you need... Get that pack down to somewhere between 30 and 40. It could get shattered. Particularly if people... people are tired and hanging on. But... more, it just... Yeah, it doesn't add up. Oh man! Oh, I got him for 40k there. Yeah, ultimately, a pack like this with 50 riders in, it's just such a big pack. Like, it doesn't break up, mate, much. By the way, what are people's thoughts on the setup with the new chat box and the new kind of frame we have on the streaming setup? Is it working? It's kind of, I believe it was Manuel in the server who created it. I think that's quite good with one of what people thought on stream. attack incoming after this defend, I fear. To be honest, I'm now kind of worried that I don't think I'm quite going to be transported to the pen, but be interested to see the average what's the kilo normalised after this, because some people here have just been dawdling it around really. There's been a few trying to really spice it up at certain points, like Paul here, but overall it's been pretty sedate in general. I'd expect it to be punchier on a course like this, but then they are pushing on a bit. Looks like people now after the last lap are a bit more interested in making it stretch out a bit more. Yeah, here we are, the super steep bit, and this is where the attacks are going. You can see even here now, where you're at 30 k's an hour, there's still draft at 30 k's an hour. Not loads, but at no point did we drop under 30, so that's intriguing. But with a couple of people off the front, there's a chance that something works here. The only issue is when you get things like this is if people are dangling at certain gaps in between, that provides the ladder for the pack to get back on. You need clear separation, although it looks like it has been gained now. Group of 3. 5k roughly. Only 1 second though. Got that pack already back on. Kyle deciding to bring back Paul. You can see how big this pack is as well. Although it was hard up there, it doesn't look like many have been dropped, if any. So yet again, it kind of, yeah. Ha, yeah, Paul. It's just what you want in it when you get brought back by a teammate. Hey Gunner, how's it going, mate? Yeah, so this last bit was just sprint and then the line. It's going to be interesting. On the last lap in the actual Swift Racing race, it'd be interesting to see who commits to that last sprint, knowing how close it is to the end. Could almost be worth trying to go for the Hail Mary and take the sprint, carry it on when no one expects you to, and try and carry it on to finish with them being that close. But yeah. Definitely going to be interesting how this all plays out. That small group off the front, didn't see where they snuck off. They've got themselves a good gap. Am I right in thinking it was a counter? Am I right in thinking it was a counter after that descent that Piglet got brought back on? That's decent separation they've gained themselves there. And with it being so twisty and so fast, they're almost out of sight really, except on that mini-map. Or on the rider list on the right hand side if you're on the very front. yet again a long sweeping fast descent like this, that they're going to struggle to hold that off. You can see them now in sight actually. Still got 5 seconds, but probably not enough. Because they're coming into a sprint here, which means a kick uphill and a surge from the pack is coming in. But then again, there's only a couple of Ks to the line, so... The blob's definitely close. I wouldn't say they'll pass them before the sprint. I think they'll catch them kind of on just after the sprint. With a surge like this though. But ultimately after this sprint, you've got under 2k to go really to the line. So if you want to keep the pressure on and make it absolutely horrific for the group, or put a kick in as speed goes down on the one of these ramps after the sprint, you could do something here. You say that, Mick, they've still got a gap and are still off the front. And with such a short distance to go, I don't think the blob will let them go. But there's potential. These riders now are being lapped, not the guys off the front. You see Piglet putting a big attack here to get across. It's a strong group off the front. It's Toygles and they're smart. I mean, that's a group right there. And this pack's going really hard. It's really not far to finish, and that's a group off the front there. Kyle just doesn't want Paul to win, does he? I feel like this would be a tight one. It's the speed down this descent from the pack that will ultimately decide it. Can they close the gap up on the day before the final kick to the line? But here we go. Sparks up this final climb. Well, they certainly held the pack off there. Piglet with a very nice podium there in a class group. Yeah, it was interesting to see how they held it off. Could it be something that works in ZRL? Who knows? Might be worth giving it a push though. And it's a perfectly timed move to jump across there from Piglet as well. Absolutely stunning. Big effort, mate. Beautiful work. I'd argue F2P don't matter, Mick. Like, how long will they have to front? 5 minutes? 4 or 5 minutes? If you... Excuse me there. If you've got a strong 4 or 5 minute power, arguably... you could absolutely smash that, because it's going to be in punch and recover up to that point, arguably, from the look of this race, and using that draft all the way up to that point, and then unleashing a 5 minute engine on it. there's feasibility there. If you go, like a few went there. So yeah. But now class riding from Paul, I'll get the old Zwift power results up on screen for us.
We'll be driving down the state, yeah. Look around for the next crowd, yeah. Going our own way, trying to find a new route, yeah. We'll be going in circles, trying to find a way, searching for the things we do, yeah. Dropped out without a choice, yeah. Hair blown round to the window, singing stupid noise.
Yeah, we're looking at 50 minutes there. Winners average 4.4. Pool averaging 4.2 there. Lots in the pack averaging around that 3.7 to 4 mark. And the front pack was stretched out over 8 seconds. Got 45 riders there. Mix of A's and B's. Kyle finishing in that pack. Jack Kellum finishing in that pack. Simon Myatt finishing in that pack. Piglet finishing off the front of that pack, of course. Yeah. Che from Vision finishing well in there, up in 12th. Those were who were coal guys there. Chris Small in 5th. Piglet in 3rd. Toy Ghouls in 2nd. And Paniza from Team Italy taking the win. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Paul, absolutely. No worries, hopefully it was interesting. Here's our Zwift Power Live for now. I imagine it is, Mick, to be fair. That would do in most people trying to follow Piglet. Particularly when Piglet's chasing after Toy Ghouls and co. Of course. I think it's a nice way to be able to look back at how the race actually played out. And kind of see all that happen and look back over how it went for you. But you provided the perfect person to watch for seeing how the front group kind of played out through. It's interesting to see that all weights and big power monsters and smaller power monsters are all pretty evenly distributed through that front group. So it's interesting that potentially there's no bias towards a particular type of rider, and that it's a course that kind of balances it out a reasonable amount. That's interesting. But anyway, I'm gonna cheers all for watching. I'm gonna call the stream there. Encourage you to go watch Mick later on this evening. And yeah, see you about. Cheers for tuning in. Hopefully it's provided some help ahead of ZRL on Tuesday. Right. Cheers all. Signing off.